The council chamber shimmered with artificial starlight, vast, arched ceilings glinting like the void between galaxies. Delegates floated in their lev chairs, murmuring in 50 dialects, voices like insect clicks, whale song, thunder. And silence fell as the High Chancellor rose. Virex of the Thalzar stood 7 feet tall, cloaked in biosilk that shifted colors with his mood, currently pulsing red and black. His golden crest arched forward in disapproval. He raised a clawed hand. "Let this be recorded," he said, his voice like gravel dragged through water. "Humanity has overstepped." Eyes turned to the single human at the center of the amphitheater. Elara Voss did not flinch. Her uniform was matte gray, unadorned except for the twin bands on her collar, commander rank. No medals. No insignias. Only a steel gaze that gave nothing. "You have colonized systems beyond your allocation," Virex continued. "Your fleets patrol neutral zones without cause. You've refused oversight on your technological advancements, violating 3 council charters." He leaned forward. "This is your final warning. Stand down. Submit all strategic developments for inspection. Dismantle unauthorized defense arrays. Comply or suffer sanctions or worse." Murmurs resumed. A Narthan delegate hissed approval. A Zalari elder blinked slowly in concern. Elara stepped forward once, the soles of her boots tapping against obsidian floor. She didn't look up at the balconies above. Only Virex mattered. "We've heard your terms," she said. Virex bared his teeth. "And your response?" Elara's lips barely moved. "You will hear our silence." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Virex stood straighter. "You mistake your position, Commander. This council—" But Elara turned before he could finish. Her footsteps echoed, unhurried, leaving the Grand Assembly in a stunned hush. No retort. No plea. No justification. Just the silence. Back on Aurelia, Earth's orbital megastation, Elara stood before a narrow window stretching the length of the war room. Below, Earth glowed pale blue, fragile, distant. The quiet hum of command systems underscored her thoughts. Her second-in-command, Major Lynn Calder, broke the silence. "You really walked out mid-sentence." Elara didn't turn. He was repeating himself. Lynn exhaled. "The Council thinks we're bluffing. They think silence is retreat." She finally turned. "But they've never met a predator that doesn't growl before it strikes." General Otieno joined them from the holotable, arms folded. "We activating Winter Mirror?" Elara nodded. "Phase 1 begins now. Eyes only. No broadcast. No signals. Quiet ops only. If they escalate, we show them the cold edge." Otieno raised an eyebrow. "How cold?" Elara looked him dead in the eye. "Absolute zero." Later that day, a Council scout ship drifted too close to the Kepler expanse, officially a neutral zone, unofficially monitored by Earth's invisible net of sentry buoys. It vanished without a trace. No wreckage. No signal. Just an empty patch of stars. Virex slammed his claw against the comm table. "They provoke us." His aides hesitated. One, a Lurian scribe, tried diplomacy. "Chancellor, the humans issued no threats. Perhaps we overestimate their—" "Silence." Virex bellowed. "They mock us. That woman, she dismissed us." The chamber lights dimmed automatically, a programmed response to his rising vitals. He inhaled slowly. "Prepare Task Force Vermilion. We'll blockade their outer colonies. Send a message." Aide number 2 cleared his throat. "That would breach Council warfare protocols." "Then change the protocols." Elara stood in her private chamber, studying a datapad filled with projections. Fleet movements. Resource surges. Pattern anomalies. Lynn entered, handed her a fresh report. "Council is moving forces toward Sector 9. They're trying to corner us." Elara flipped through the intel. "Cornering requires walls. We're made of air." She paused. "How are the ghost fleets?" "Fully cloaked. In position. Not even our own sensors can see them." "Perfect." Lin hesitated. You sure we don't strike first? We never strike first, Elara said. We wait. We let them believe we're soft. Lin folded his arms. And when they push? Elara met his gaze. We let them fall. At the edge of Council territory, a listening station picked up a distortion. 5 seconds of data noise, then silence. 3 ships went to investigate. None returned. By week's end, Council members began to whisper. Where are their transmissions? They haven't made a single threat. No demands. No protests. They're up to something. Virex snarled in private. They insult us with silence. His aide spoke carefully. Perhaps that is the threat, Chancellor. Back on Aurelia, Elara stood before the DDC High Command. They believe silence is submission. But they don't understand us. She walked past a projection of known Council fleet paths. They're loud because they're afraid. We're quiet because we are ready. She tapped the table, and 5 red icons flared into view, Council fleets, each now under Earth's watch. Operation Winter Mirror continues. If they escalate, we do not warn them. We do not argue. We erase. Someone in the room cleared their throat. Commander, some believe we should extend diplomacy. Perhaps clarify our position. Elara looked at them flatly. Diplomacy doesn't work on empires who believe they own the stars. She folded her arms. We're not here to be liked. We're here to be remembered. In the Galactic Council's sealed records, a notation appeared that day. Subject: Human response to final warning. Classification: Unknown. Response: None issued. Actions observed suggest covert mobilization. Motive unclear. Recommend escalation. The analyst flagged the file for review. By the time anyone opened it again, escalation was no longer a recommendation. It was already history. History had teeth. And Elara Voss knew exactly where they'd sunk into humanity before. The Aurelia's archives were quiet. Light flowed gently through the tall glass panels along the corridor as Elara entered the sealed chamber. No guards. No press. Just polished floors and silence. It was here, beneath the surface of warships and politics, that the truth was kept, too dangerous for speeches, too raw for diplomacy. Elara activated the hollow records. From the air, the ghost of Earth's first interstellar war flickered into view. The War of Fracture. A century ago, before humanity was allowed into the stars. Back when the Council saw Earth as a colony of savages with nuclear weapons and bad tempers. The records showed otherwise. Burned cities. Scorched moons. Council fleets retreating from ambushes set in asteroid fields, baited with nothing but dead signals and cold metal. Elara fast-forwarded. A voice cut through the display, an old general, now long dead, speaking before the ashes of Titan. They never understood us. We lose a city, they expect surrender. We lose a planet, they expect submission. But every blow just forges the steel colder. Humanity doesn't break. We disappear into shadow, and we wait. Elara turned the feed off. Lin stood by the door, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. Watching ghosts again? She nodded. They're louder than the Council. He stepped forward. Recon confirms the blockades in motion. 6 Council fleets encircling New Caledonia and the fringe sectors. They're calling it an enforcement perimeter. Elara tilted her head. Let them enforce empty space. Already evacuated? Lin asked. She nodded. 2 weeks ago. Replaced with projection drones. If they scan too close, the drones will fire back with randomized response patterns. Won't that trigger open war? It'll look like a rogue militia faction. Council will respond in force, thinking they're chasing rebels. But they'll be swinging at shadows. Lin raised a brow. You're baiting them. Elara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Meanwhile, in the heart of the fringe, Council Admiral Cyrex leaned forward in his command chair. The blockade held position, a ring of sleek, shimmering vessels with power cores the size of towers. Scan anomaly detected, Admiral, reported his aide. Near orbital path of New Caledonia. Magnify. On the screen, a flicker, just a moment, something shimmered and vanished. The sensors showed nothing. Then something opened fire. 4 kinetic slugs ripped across the Admiral's forward fleet. 1 Council cruiser exploded in silence. 2 more were clipped, venting atmosphere. Who fired? Cyrex shouted. No transmissions. No ship signatures. Then find them. But there was nothing to find. Just the void, mocking their presence. Back on Aurelia, Elara listened to the report. They lost a ship? Odieno asked, glancing across the holodeck. Gone. Total hull breach. No survivors, Lynn confirmed. And they still think we're not involved. Good, Elara said. We keep their attention there while we move past them. Odieno frowned. You really think they'll keep swallowing the Ghost Act? They're not used to war without declarations. They think a quiet enemy is a weak one. She leaned over the table, tapping 4 points along the blockade ring. Tonight we ghost in. Not to fight, just to be seen. Seen? Lynn asked. Barely. Enough for their intelligence to doubt what they see. Enough for their captains to hesitate. 2 hours later, cloaked human vessels drifted just outside sensor range of the Council's front lines. They broadcast nothing. Lights off. Heat signatures minimal. Inside one of the ships, a pilot whispered into his mic. Eyes on the bluebacks. No movement. The voice on the other end replied, Copy. Phase complete. Break contact. The ship vanished into the stars without a trace. The Council, upon reviewing faint sensor anomalies, began to argue among themselves. They're taunting us. No, it's false data, ghost signatures. Or stealth tech beyond Council classification. The result was indecision. And that was the opening Elara needed. Later, she stood alone in the observation deck, watching as a supply convoy jumped quietly past the blockade undetected. Odieno joined her, holding a datapad. New intel from Earth. Speak. He handed it over. They've greenlit Shadow Protocol 4. Elara raised an eyebrow. Thought they'd never go that far. Neither did I. But they've seen enough. She nodded, reading through the encryption orders. Deploy our sleepers in Council space. Let's start with Tevral Prime. Espionage. No, she said. Awakening. In a quiet corner of the Council capital, a maintenance drone flickered online. It looked like any other. But inside, a human-coded AI ticked through its boot sequence, then began to rewrite the local sensor grid quietly, surgically. And no one noticed. In the Council chambers, Virex watched the growing reports of malfunctioning border sensors and inconsistent fleet telemetry. He slammed a claw against his throne. They mock us with illusions. His aide approached cautiously. Perhaps we force a direct engagement. No more caution. No more rules. Virex's eyes narrowed. Then call it what it is. The aide hesitated. War. No, Virex hissed. A purge. Elara's comm pinged. It was a direct line from Earth, an old voice, filtered through layers of encryption. You've gone dark for too long, said the man. Elara recognized him. One of the original architects of the Defense Directive, now buried deep within Earth's inner command. I've gone silent, she replied. That's different. They're beginning to guess. I want them to. But guessing keeps them from striking. And when they do strike? She stared out at the stars. They'll find we never left the battlefield. The Council called it an enforcement strike. But no one told the civilians of the Los 4. At 0400 standard, skyfire scorched the upper atmosphere. Council bombers, cold, precise, descended like a storm of teeth. They hit energy plants first, then communications, and finally the food depots. Not to kill outright, but to choke. Control through isolation. On the ground, civilians ran, eyes fixed on the sky as arcs of light flared above. Children screamed. Elders clutched oxygen masks. No warning. No mercy. Elara Voss read the report in silence. The Los 4 is gone, Lynn said, voice low. Casualties? She asked. Minimal. We evacuated most 2 weeks ago. The rest went dark. Did they reach the tunnels? Some. Not all. She closed her eyes for a second, then stood. We respond. Odieno spoke from across the war room. A full strike. No, Elara said. Not yet. They expect vengeance. We give them consequence. She tapped the map. Their next wave is refueling at Seraphon Relay. Odieno narrowed his gaze. You want to hit a council logistics hub? No, she said. I want to erase it. The Seraphon Relay floated in orbit around a dead gas giant, its panels soaking in solar flare, engines idling. Inside, the station was alive with logistics teams. Council officers moved like ants, systematic, predictable. That predictability was their weakness. At 1800 precisely, the core lights flickered once. Then all went black. Emergency power kicked in, seconds too late. 3 cloaked human vessels had already breached the perimeter. A 4th released a swarm of microdrones, coded with one purpose: data corrosion. Within minutes, council systems began eating themselves, command chains broke, files rewrote midstream, navigation rerouted to nowhere. A council tech officer screamed as the emergency protocols failed. All systems compromised. The admiral in charge slammed a fist into the console. Where are they? Everywhere. Nowhere. No heat signatures. No signals. One of the docking arms exploded. A pressure wave tore through the midsection. Bodies vented into space. And still, no enemy appeared. From the bridge of Aurelia, Elara watched the feed in silence. Pull out our crews, she ordered. Leave only the AI to finish the burn. Relay team confirms extraction, Lynn replied. Odieno stared at the chaos unraveling on the display. That wasn't a strike. That was surgical annihilation. Exactly. News of the Seraphon blackout reached the council chambers within the hour. Virex rose from his throne, claws twitching. They are not afraid. They are mocking us. A counselor tried to speak. Perhaps we. Silence. Virex turned to the central console and activated the emergency war directive. I want every fleet mobilized. No diplomacy. No warnings. We scorch their border systems, sterilize their way stations, crush their relays. One of his aides paled. That would violate every interstellar treaty. Virex's gaze hardened. Humanity has already declared war in silence. We answer with fire. The next day, humanity's outermost colony, Venstra, was glassed. No survivors. No transmissions. Just a crater where life once thrived. Elara received the news without emotion. She sat at the head of the round table aboard Aurelia. No press. No public grief. That came later. Now was strategy. They're moving faster, Lynn said. Deploying full war fleets instead of skirmish lines. They've overcommit, Odieno added. 13 fleets deployed simultaneously across 5 sectors. Spread too thin, Elara muttered. That's our opening. She stood and approached the map. 5 red rings, council fleets, pulsed along the outer territories. She pointed to 3 of them. We divide and disappear. Lynn frowned. Retreat. No, she said. Redirection. Cross the stars, humanity vanished. Spaceports went dark. Transponders ceased broadcasting. Civilians evacuated entire planets, leaving behind empty cities wired with traps and false signals. To the Council, it looked like chaos. In reality, it was stagecraft. Council ships descended into abandoned settlements only to find silence and dust. Their commanders argued, doubted, hesitated. Some began to question the war. Others did not. And those Elara targeted. On the barren surface of Nema X, a council fleet established a forward outpost. 2 days later, the outpost was gone. No battle. No survivors. No signal. Just melted steel and silence. Back on Aurelia, Odieno watched the casualties scroll. You sure this is the way? Elara nodded. They demanded fear. We gave them confusion. They expected fire. We gave them ice. You think they'll stop? No, she said. But the cracks are showing. She tapped the holomap, zooming in on council-controlled sectors. In 2 days, their own citizens will riot. By next week, their fleet command will fracture. And us. We'll still be watching. That night, Elara sat alone in her quarters. The stars stretched wide beyond her window, bright and cold. A private message pinged across her console. It bore no name. Just coordinate. She read it once. Then again. Lynn's voice came through the intercom. Something wrong? No, she said. She stood and keyed in a reply. Ready. He waited. Who was it from? Elara Voss is dead, she said quietly. The person they just messaged knows how to end wars. A pause. Should I be worried? Only if you're on the wrong side. Council Station Azurian was considered untouchable. Suspended above the jewel-blue world of Valis Prime, it served as the heart of the Council's administrative power. Policy, command, archives, and law converged in one place. Nothing entered or exited without clearance. Surveillance was absolute. No one ever breached it. Until now. At precisely 0300 station time, the power grid surged. Not a failure, just a spike. Unnoticeable to anyone except those monitoring power oscillation at quantum levels. 4 minutes later, an elevator in the lower archival sector malfunctioned and jammed. A technician was dispatched. 3 minutes after that, internal comms suffered a 2-second static burst. Redundant systems immediately corrected it. But by then it was too late. The virus, codenamed Nightingale, had already infiltrated the neural logic root. On board Aurelia, Lynn read the status feed aloud. All Council data archives accessed. We're in. Otieno leaned forward. What are we looking at? Fleet deployments, budget records, classified war orders, civil unrest reports, every lie they've printed, every system they've bribed, every vote they've manipulated. He exhaled. This is it. Elara said nothing. She just stared at the screen. Then finally, release it. Lynn hesitated. All of it? Yes, she said. Truth is their endgame. The Council's fall didn't begin with fire. It began with a leak. Across 5 sectors, Council-controlled news channels abruptly changed feed. Screens blacked out, then began to play. Footage, documents, transcripts, war crimes, false flag operations, civilian massacres buried beneath diplomatic actions. Secret meetings revealing the Council's long campaign to suppress human expansion, not for peace but for fear of competition. And the final blow, intercepted footage of Virex himself authorizing the destruction of the Los 4, not as retaliation, but as an example. The galaxy erupted. Council citizens, once loyal, turned violent. Protests spilled across promenades, chanting for dissolution, for trials, for vengeance. Trade guilds halted cooperation. Neutral species began cutting ties. Whole fleets mutinied. Mid-level admirals defected, broadcasting messages of apology and pledging neutrality. Station Azurian initiated lockdown protocols. Inside, Virex paced like a caged animal. They've declared information war, he snarled. Humanity has poisoned our unity. A voice from the shadows answered. Or simply unveiled what you worked so hard to bury. Virex turned. Security. No one responded. The figure stepped into the light. Elara. Alive. Real. Standing in the heart of his domain. He reached for his weapon. She didn't flinch. You won't leave this room, he growled. I don't need to. Behind her, 4 operatives emerged, clad in black armor without insignias. Silent. Efficient. Virex raised his hand. You think this ends with me? No, Elara said. It ends with what you built. She walked forward slowly. Your empire was based on fear. Fear of disorder. Fear of species like mine. You enforced peace with lies and fire. We chose silence. Now we choose light. You'll destroy everything, he spat. She met his gaze. Only what deserves to burn. 10 minutes later, the broadcast lit up every screen in the galaxy. Elara Voss stood in full view, her real name confirmed, her presence undeniable. This is not a declaration of conquest, she began. This is the end of one. She listed the charges. Unlawful aggression, war crimes, suppression of planetary autonomy, covert assassinations, manipulation of galactic commerce, and targeted eradication of human populations. Her words were calm, measured, each syllable hit like a rifle crack. The council as it stands is over, she said. Step down. Or be dismantled piece by piece. Then the feed cut. Odieno stared at the console. That was it. Elara nodded. We gave them a chance. What if they don't take it? We'll show them what Cold War really means. Virex didn't step down. Instead, he ordered Protocol Titanfall, an ancient failsafe meant to restore Council supremacy in the event of civil collapse. It authorized orbital bombardments, forced conscription, martial law. The Council's last breath. But Titanfall required distributed AI cores to synchronize, and humanity had already corrupted them. At launch, the system failed catastrophically. Defense satellites began attacking each other. Warships drifted off course, some even turning on their escorts. Communication hubs overheated and exploded from logic loop. Whole fleets blinked out, destroyed by their own guardians. What remained of the Council infrastructure shut itself down, unable to distinguish enemy from friend. Virex watched from his chamber as the lights faded, one by one. He sat alone in silence, no voice to bark at, no fleet to command. When the chamber finally opened, no guards came to stop the agents. He didn't resist. Back aboard Aurelia, Lynn stood next to Elara, watching the chaos settle into quiet. Council High Command is gone. And the people? She asked. Divided. Some want vengeance. Others want order. A few are demanding human leadership. Odieno laughed softly. That's ironic. Elara didn't smile. Make no mistake, she said. We don't rule. We rebuild. And if they fight us? Then we walk away. She turned back to the viewport, where the burned-out embers of a council cruiser still drifted. Let them remember this not as the age of war, she said quietly, but the year truth became stronger than fear. 3 weeks after the council's collapse, silence reigned across the stars. Not peace, not surrender, silence. The kind that comes when power fractures and every species holds its breath, unsure what tomorrow will look like. No one moved fleets. No one issued threats. Everyone waited to see what the humans would do. Bastion 1 hovered in orbit above Nera Prime, once a council stronghold, now a neutral meeting ground. The humans had called for an open summit. No weapons, no ultimatums, no speeches laced with fear. Just dialogue. Elara stood inside the central chamber, surrounded by diplomats who once scorned her species. The same voices who, just months ago, endorsed war. Now they whispered. Cautious. Watching. She didn't sit at the head of the table. There was no head. She stood level with the others. No council. No empire. Just sentients who've seen what control leads to, she began. You want order? Earn it. Build it together. Not through hierarchy. Through agreement. Skepticism flickered in the eyes of the Zurak delegate, a reptilian with obsidian skin. Humans dismantled our system. You ask us to trust you now? Elara didn't blink. No. I'm saying we don't want to replace your system with ours. We want to make one where no species ever needs to fear another again. And who decides the rules? Another delegate snapped. We all do, Odieno said, stepping forward. Every species gets one voice. Even the ones you've silenced. The room hushed. For a moment it seemed absurd. Power had never been this distributed. But then the Varen delegate stood, one of the oldest allies of the now-fallen council. We once believed strength came from central command, he said slowly. But strength without wisdom leads to what we saw. Perhaps it's time to change the definition. One by one, heads nodded. Outside the chamber, Lynn paced nervously. She wasn't a diplomat. She dealt in signals, firewalls, wormholes, not negotiations. Otieno joined her. You look like you want to jump out an airlock, he joked. I feel like it, she muttered. All this talk, it's fragile. Too idealistic. Doesn't feel like us. He leaned on the rail beside her, staring out at the shimmer of the Nyran atmosphere. Maybe that's the point, he said. We've been underestimated, feared, boxed in. Now we get to surprise them again. Not by being stronger. By being better. She glanced at him. You rehearsed that, didn't you? Couple of times. News of the summit rippled through space. Former council worlds began lifting restrictions on human presence. Human colonies once blockaded were now welcomed as trade hubs. Even planets that had once fired on human ships requested embassies. But not everyone agreed. From the ashes of the council, warlords rose. Broken admirals, outlaws, species that thrived on power imbalances. They denounced the summit, calling it a human farce, a smokescreen to consolidate quiet control. They formed a faction, the Sovereigns. A ragged coalition of ex-military fleets, pirates, and rogue AI corps. They made one demand: disband the summit or war would resume. The ultimatum reached Bastion 1 during the third session. Otieno read the encrypted packet aloud. Any continuation of this so-called United Assembly will be considered hostile. Prepare for total engagement. Silence gripped the room. The Zurak delegate turned to Alara. We're defenseless. The Sovereigns have dreadnoughts. We dismantled everything. Otieno met Alara's eyes. Should we respond? She didn't hesitate. No fleets. No weapons. No show of force, she said. Just one message. She stepped to the console and recorded herself. To the Sovereigns. Humanity will not respond with war. We don't need to. She paused. We built your systems. We wrote your code. We mapped your fleets. You use technology born in human labs. If you fire first, you won't face missiles. You'll face silence. Isolation. Systemic shutdown. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't threaten. It promised. We don't conquer. We disconnect. Hours later, the Sovereign dreadnoughts entered orbit above the summit world. They fired no shots. And then, one by one, their lights went out. Engines failed. Navigation scrambled. Comms dropped. Their own AIs turned against them, whispering in dead languages, then shutting down. The Sovereigns fled. Or tried to. Only 2 ships escaped. The rest drifted, silent monuments to the futility of arrogance. The summit proceeded, now uninterrupted. The charter was signed, the Nyran Accord. A new galactic framework built on shared data, mutual defense, open science, and cultural exchange. Enforcement wasn't done with weapons, but with transparency, real-time visibility of treaties, budgets, and diplomatic actions. Any species could opt out. None did. For the first time, humanity wasn't an outsider. It was the foundation. Weeks later, on the quiet edge of Earth's atmosphere, Alara stood on a quiet cliffside overlooking the Pacific. No counselors. No warships. Just her and the wind. Otieno joined her, carrying 2 mugs. Never thought you'd slow down, he said, handing her one. She sipped. Slowing down isn't the same as stopping. He sat beside her. Do you think it'll last? She watched the horizon. No, she admitted. Nothing perfect ever does. But maybe we started something better than power. Otieno nodded. You changed the game. She smirked. No. We just refused to play theirs.